after centuries of Ottoman rule, our Tsar Ferdinand I declared independence with the support of Russia and other great powers. But the Ottomans still control a little less than half of our claims, and with our foreign support waning, it will be difficult to achieve Tsar Ferdinand's ambitions. But this won't stop us. He has already set up plans to unify all the ethnic Bulgarian lands in the Balkans. And it all starts with our economy and industry. Currently it's about as big as the Romanian, Serbian and Greek economies, but it can't be compared with the Ottomans. They have several more civilian factories and even more than 10 military factories. If we can't slightly equal the playing field, we will never have a chance against them. Luckily, a massive urbanization of Sofia began as we gained independence, meaning there are a ton of workers available who can open new factories. So we will immediately start to industrialize our economy despite the price of various maluses. While the long-term benefits of focusing on civilian industries are greater, we need more military factories right now. Since if we take too long to prepare the war with the Ottomans, they will have reformed their army and strengthened their economy. So we will invest into 2 new military factories. That's when we received a message from Serbia. They too want to attack the Ottomans to take their claimed lands. And although we oppose on the faith of Macedonia, they are asking for a friendship treaty aimed against the Ottomans. This goes perfectly with our Tsar's plan to create a united front against the Ottomans with Serbia and Greece. So their proposal was quickly accepted. And now that we guarantee each other, we finally dare to make our anti-Ottoman diplomacy official and signal to Serbia and Greece our plans. But before we set the plan in motion by discussing the Macedonian question with Serbia, we will shortly focus on our military. Currently we employ 120,000 men, which isn't that much. However, with our 5 military factories, we have a massive surplus in equipment and we've already started training 6 new infantry divisions. But this has raised another issue, that of manpower. With 57,000 reserves, we can only train 4 more divisions until we run out. And if the war turns bloody, we would also run out of them. So we've decided to expand our conscription and start to enlist more men. It will hurt our economy, but it's a worthy sacrifice. We did now start to prepare for negotiations on Macedonia. But before we were done, great news reached us about urbanization. Not only did it ramp up in Sofia, but Plovdiv, Burgas and Varna were also growing quickly, which will allow us to expand our industrial base. The preparations are now done and we sent our proposal to Serbia to create a free, neutral Macedonian state so that none of us get the land. However, as we feared, they refused any kind of compromise. But we need them as allies, at least against the Ottomans. So we will try again, this time trying to negotiate over each Macedonian state to partition them. While we do, we also spent a lot of money on creating 3 civilian factories now that urbanization is going up. We started by discussing the status of Strumica. Being quite far away from Serbia, it was decided that we would get the state. In return, we had to accept that Serbia would get Skopje. But since Skopje is far bigger than Strumica, we also got Malesevo. Finally, the Serbians asked for the last Macedonian state left, Ohrid. Fearing they would refuse to support our plans of a Balkan League, we had to make this rather large concession. So after this they agreed to create a faction, but it will take some time during which we can continue strengthening our industry and army. Starting by boosting steel production, the most important resource to make guns, support equipment and artillery. We also changed our economic law to partial mobilization. To strengthen our army, we once again started recruiting more men, since we have managed to double our troops and we might soon run out of men if we don't. Finally, since the negotiations were starting to wrap up, we put our effort into creating a military headquarters for the war to coordinate our defenses. A few days after, we formed the Balkan League with Serbia and Montenegro. Greece also joined as planned a day later. In 20 days, the war will be declared and the Balkans will be liberated. And while the Ottomans have expanded their army, they have also been defeated by Italy in Libya and are fighting an insurrection in Yemen. So, as the war was declared, we immediately had the initiative. While they had defenses almost everywhere, we found a gap in eastern Thrace which allowed us to cut off the Balkans from Constantinople. We also broke through in Thrace and managed to encircle several Ottoman divisions. That's when Russia sent weapons to support us, something we have to remember, and Albania declared independence from the Ottomans. A few days later we had arrived in Thessaloniki and cut off all Ottoman troops from a port. As we started to liberate the last of Macedonia, the Ottomans asked for an armistice. It had gone a lot faster than expected, but we accepted and started negotiations. After a few days of it in London, the new borders were drawn. We got our 2 Macedonian states, including Eastern Macedonia and all of Thrace. Other than that, Albania was officially established. Serbia and Greece also got a lot of lands. But despite gaining a lot of lands, we have been robbed. We deserve much more as we did the main fighting. But the Serbs don't see it this way and refuse to give away their Bulgarian lands, citing their agreement prior to the war. So Ferdinand I decided to tear it up, leave the Balkan League and prepare our country for war. This war will be much harder. Not only will we fight alone against Serbia and Greece, but Romania and the Ottomans might join as well. Romania, since they have claimed and demanded southern Dobruja, while the Ottomans would join to take back eastern Thrace. While we are stronger than all Balkan nations, together they are stronger than us. So the only way we can win is to separate them and take them out one by one. This will need a bunch of preparations. Starting by continuing to strengthening our industry. To spread our industrialization to our new states, we will expand our state railways to the south. With a ton of people from this region emigrating north, especially to Plovdiv, we've decided to open an arms plant in the city. The last preparations were that we constructed a few forts on the Ottoman and Greek borders. Finally, with the deployment of 3 new divisions we will hold against the Ottomans, our army employed over 300,000 men and we felt ready to declare war on Serbia. So we proclaimed the Serbian occupation of Macedonia illegal and declared war, starting the Second Balkan War. Our Tsar immediately announced that about a fourth of our civilian economy would be shifted towards military production so that we would be able to expand our army. Unsurprisingly, the Serbians knew we would attack and they were the ones who started the first battle. They were even winning in 2 provinces, but by shifting around our defenses and forcing them to defend, we managed to hold them off and inflict the first casualties on our enemies. Soon we started our own offensive into Pirot, a town with a rather large Bulgarian presence. During this battle, the Romanians joined the now anti-Bulgarian League, but they didn't seem to dare trying to attack across the Donau. So we continued our small attack. While we were really close to succeed, a small reinforcement from Romania and Serbia stopped us in our tracks. Instead of trying again, we turned to the south. Here the Greeks had supply problems which allowed us to attack towards Thessaloniki. This time we managed to stop any reinforcements by pinning them down. As we captured our first province, we hadn't only reached the outskirts of Thessaloniki but also encircled 3 divisions. Due to our pin, they hadn't been able to reinforce the city either, which allowed us to capture it and promptly rename it to Solun. We also managed to destroy all 3 encircled divisions. During this, the Ottomans had declared war, but our forts stopped any of their attacks. However, that would change soon. Since we had shifted a lot of troops south, the Serbians managed to capture Vidin, which boosted their morale and everyone staged a massive offensive together. We held them off everywhere except against the Ottomans, who almost broke through. Luckily, we saved ourselves from disaster by deploying 2 new divisions to the front. Seeing how we need more divisions, we decided to stage an attack in Greece again. And since it was successful, we had shortened the front with 1 province and made theirs 2 longer. We will now simply defend against their attacks to tire them out while we train 3 extra divisions so we can stage larger offensive actions. While we waited, Ferdinand I announced total mobilization as well as service by requirement. The cost of industrializing our economy also started to grow smaller, allowing us to use more civilian factories for construction. About 5 months later, our 3 divisions were deployed and we had inflicted enough casualties on Greek and Serbia, 250,000 to be exact, that both had stopped attacking due to running out of men and probably equipment as well. So they are the prime target for an offensive. And the goal is to separate them from each other. We've done it after cutting all our enemies away from each other. The Serbian front completely collapsed and the anti-Bulgarian League surrendered. After a quick peace deal, we had gotten all our Bulgarian lands, even from Romania, whom we hadn't captured a single province from. Greater Bulgaria has now been achieved and we are the victors in the Second Balkan War, but we are still at war with the Ottomans. However, before we stage any offensive to kick them out of it, our Tsar has decided to do some political maneuvering. Since despite us being a semi-constitutional monarchy with a national assembly, he has managed to essentially do as he pleases. And now that we have achieved our Balkan hegemony, all thanks to him, he has decided that it's finally time to disband the national assembly. Because all they have done is to get in the way of the Tsar and the nation. And now that he is the only person leading our great nation, he has decided to share his dream for Bulgaria, to create a new Byzantium and kick the Ottomans out of the Byzantine capital. It will take some time before the army rearranges to this goal. However, the Tsar decided to speed this up by assuming control over it and tell our generals to prepare for an offensive. While they did, something rather terrifying occurred. The Ottomans joined the Central Powers and called the Germans and Austrians into our war. Luckily, we don't have a border with them and they don't seem to send any troops to our front. But they are bombing our country with airships, something we can't do anything about. We will start to research anti-air guns, but it will take time before they can be constructed in our major cities. In the meantime, we will still try to push against the Ottomans. While they had had a long time to entrench themselves, we surprisingly managed to slowly advance. By attacking a second province as well, we managed to stop any reinforcements from Gelibolu. While they could reinforce from Constantinople, we still managed to slowly wear them down and eventually we arrived to the Sea of Marmara, splitting the Ottoman European holding in two. Since the second offensive also went surprisingly well, we decided to continue attack there as well as towards Constantinople. That's when worrying news arrived from Serbia. Austria-Hungary and Italy had declared war on them, not only drawing the Italians into the Central Powers but also potentially opening a front against us. Even scarier, there was no reaction from the Entente, who seemed scared to act. So we were once again allies with the Serbians and we must keep them from capitulating. Fortunately, while they have zero manpower, they still have a sizable army, and as they gave us military access, we sent 12 divisions to support them. The plan will be to wear the Austrians down to show the Entente that they aren't scary, and to just continue our Ottoman attacks. There we managed to take over a second province and immediately started attacking Gelibolu. As our offensive towards the city started to go better and better, the Italians launched the naval invasion of Solun. Being completely unprotected, they managed to capture it, but before too many troops had reinforced, we had already started kicking them out with reservists. Soon they were all dead and the city was recaptured. As we turned back to the Ottoman front, our offensive towards Constantinople had sadly failed, but the troops defending Gelibolu were slowly getting pushed out until we finally captured the city. After this, we shortly tried to attack Constantinople again by tricking them to first attack us. While it went well at first, our offensive slowly grinded to a halt. After some days we tried again, but this time by retreating and then staging a counterattack. It failed again. So we tried one last time, and while we managed to encircle some Ottoman divisions and reach the city, we still failed to enter it, due to the massive amount of troops guarding it. Now instead of trying again, we could send our troops to Serbia. However, things are going quite good there, with already more than 800,000 casualties for the Austro-Hungarians alone. And if we send more troops, the supply situation would be disastrous. So instead we decided to prepare for another important part of reforming Byzantium, to capture Albania and Greece. However, before the 10 new divisions who would aid in this offensive were deployed, we radically changed our plan. Since the Entente had joined the war and we decided to join the faction together with Serbia. But before we could decide how to react to this excellent news, the now Great War escalated even more, with Germany declaring war on Belgium to try and outmaneuver the French. The UK, which guaranteed the Belgians, joined as well. This means the Ottomans will have plenty more fronts, and we've already seen the effects on their defense. They've only left 2 divisions. So we immediately took our chance. Our troops quickly reached the outskirts of the city, but that was the easy part. The battle that ensued was violently fought from house to house, and as it seemed we had broken through, a ton of Italian and Ottoman reinforcements filled the gap. It was so bloody we even had to shift away whole divisions to refill them with men outside the battle. Just as it seemed it would continue forever, Ivan Kolev, our general, forced all our divisions to attack, and while we took heavier casualties we eventually reached Hagia Sophia and pushed the Ottomans out of Europe. So we are finally in control of the Byzantine capital, but we still can't declare it reborn, since we lack the important Greek and Albanian states. But now is the perfect time to seize them, since Greece has broken the treaty granting northern Epirus to Albania, and both are also claiming our lands, so a preemptive strike is needed. Otherwise they will join the Central Powers in the worst time for us. It didn't take long to prepare for our strikes, but in the meantime Montenegro joined the Entente to help us against Austria. And the 3rd of February 1917 we launched our attacks. Finally, after a bit more than a year of battles, we've secured all of Greece. This means we can finally achieve our dream. After a magnificent speech from Ferdinand I, he announced the Byzantine Empire reborn, moved our capital to Constantinople and changed our flag. We've achieved our goal, but the war is still raging. Russia has lost big parts of Poland, Lithuania and Belarus. And Romania has joined the war, helping us capture our first few Austro-Hungarian provinces. Even better news is that Russia has helped us cross to the other side of the Bosphorus Strait. And now that we have a ton of troops freed up from battle, we've decided to use this opportunity and take back Anatolia, which was seized by the Ottomans so many years ago. Despite facing 4 divisions, the battle was a decisive victory as the Ottomans and Italians started retreating. With this important province captured, we had left the Black Sea behind us and started heading into Anatolia. As there were few if not no Ottoman troops, we simply marched south and east, capturing cities such as Ankara and Zonguldak. Soon Ottoman reinforcements arrived, but way too few to stop us. We simply marched around them and continued. After only some weeks we had reached the eastern Mediterranean Sea and Antalya. About 5 days later Izmir was captured and so all of West Anatolia was secured. Still, the Ottomans were only 58% towards capitulation. If we want them to surrender, we will need Jerusalem and probably Baghdad as well. So that's what we did. In the span of 3 days we encircled Adana and captured Aleppo. From there we met the English troops in Damascus and together with them we entered the holy city. As we thought, the Ottomans still didn't surrender. However, they were so close that we only had to capture Mosul for them to finally capitulate. So, the second major power in the Central Powers have been destroyed, and since we own all of Anatolia we can start to incorporate it into our Byzantine Empire. But while it sounds like everything is going perfect, one of our main allies have completely collapsed. After losing popularity, Nicholas II of Russia was deposed by a provisional government. But failing to make peace with the Germans, the Bolsheviks under Lenin rose up in Petrograd and Moscow and started the First Russian Civil War. This means that all Central Power forces will be able to turn away from the Russian front towards us. So we must crush them before a peace agreement is signed in Russia. Luckily our allies have already started attacks against the Austrians, and with them suffering supply problems we managed to advance rather quickly. Soon we had even broken through and managed to capture Budapest. With the Soviets now having occupied all of Western Russia, a ton of Central Powers reinforcements started arriving. But with almost all suffering from attrition issues and lack of guns, we could still continue just slower. For example, our foothold in Hungary was improved with the capturing of Szeged and with our troops crossing the Donau. Meanwhile, thinking that the Belgians and French had done far too little, we sent 22 divisions to the German-French front. They almost immediately broke through, but due to great reinforcements on the German part we failed to cross the Rhine. But as we tried again in the north, using the same strategy as in Constantinople, we succeeded to cross the river and capture Essen. From there we continued north. Soon we had reached Wilhelmshaven, but due to the massive amount of troops guarding it, we decided to skip it and continue eastwards. While German troops always tried to stop us, we managed to capture Hanover. Meanwhile, the USA and almost all of South America joined our side, and they have already navally invaded Sicily. With all these losses and with more than 5 million dead if you disregard all on the Eastern Front, Germany and its allies announced that they were surrendering. So finally the Great War is over. All that has to be done now is to agree on the new borders of Europe. Starting with us, we got all our lands we conquered, but gave away parts of Syria and Iraq to the French and British. In Germany, the Weimar Republic was established and they mostly lost lands in the Rhineland. Things went much worse for the Austro-Hungarians, who completely collapsed. The only nation from the Central Powers who didn't get too punished were the Italians, who only lost their colonies. Back at home we have a lot of rebuilding and integration to do. It will take time to turn our economy towards a civilian industry and reconstruct our country. But with the vast resources of our new empire, we are at least certain that we will succeed. While war is over for us, we still have to project our influence on our neighbors, especially on the breakaway states in the Caucasus and Crimea. Thanks for watching, and if you have subscribed, thanks so much for 50,000 subscribers. We are halfway to 100,000. See you in the next video.